My name is Sundaram. I used to be with Hindustan Unilever for almost 34 years. And when I stepped out, I was the vice chairman and chief financial officer of the company. I am currently, for the past about 10-12 years, with the private equity, TVS Capital Funds, as a managing director and vice chairman of the group. Greetings on this World Sight Day. I just take a few minutes to talk about some basic management concepts. I will do this through a hypothetical example, an imaginary example, so that you will appreciate that in a real life context. I just take an example of three friends, doctors, let us say, that would be most appropriate in this case, who are in Coimbatore. Let's call them Arun and Albert and Arogyaswamy. They have been in medical profession for a long time, well established, different fields of medicine, but have been friends for very long. They look around and see so many ventures are being started, so much of entrepreneurial activities are going around. So they believe they should come together and do something of their own. Very wonderful and laudable objective. Therefore, they get together and decide that using their experience, they should really go for start a hospital. That would be very appropriate. So they get together, then let's just go through what are the various steps and processes they would have gone through or they could go through to realize their vision and ambition. They start, basically, they just need to define what is it that they are wanting to do. First, I think if they think most important is in starting and running a hospital, they want to have reputation as their biggest asset. They want to be well known and reputed for their service and for their ethical behavior and the way they deal with all the people they come into contact with. Therefore, they believe that they need to build a very good brand of what they are doing. Second thing, they think that they have to be committed to all the stakeholders, the doctors, the other medical employees, medical professionals who are involved, the patients, the people they deal with, the environment, how they deal with environmental issues responsibly. All that really becomes an important objective, being very ethical and straightforward people themselves. And the third, of course, they also realize when they invest with their capital, when they start a venture, it's very important they should make a very economic success of it. So therefore, they need to generate adequate profits, profits which will be a good return for their investment, as well as surplus that they can generate and plow back for the growth of the institution. So therefore, economic objective, financial performance also is an important objective. Therefore, the first step in their entire journey, they have defined a clearly certain objectives for themselves. The objectives are the reputation, the stakeholder interest, and the economic performance. Sometimes in some of these, they can also set some goals. They can really say that my financial performance, I should at least generate 20% return on my invested capital. Or they can really say patient satisfaction index should be increasing year on year. Or the attrition level of my employees should come down. They are goals. They can keep changing and improving year on year. But the overall objectives with which they have set about is very, very clearly in front of them that they will guide them always. Then the question, I think, is some very important choices they have to make. And these choices will define which road they are going to take, right? For example, they will have an important choice as to where to locate their hospital. Where should this hospital be? Should it be in Coimbatore? They have clearly some home advantages. They were born and brought up and grew up as friends there. Therefore, should it be in Coimbatore? Or should it be in Chennai, where maybe the amount of traffic, the patient traffic may be higher, the paying capacity may be higher, and so on and so forth. So therefore, where the location should be. The location also will be driven by, are there any facilities, hospital facilities nearby? Are there competing hospitals nearby? Would also be a consideration. So therefore, they have to have a choice of location. Then they need to have a choice of what should be, this should be a specialty hospital or this should be a general purpose hospital. Should they really bring in more specialists and develop a multi-speciality hospital? Or should they say, let's say, this should be only a pediatric hospital, or should it be only, let's say, an orthopedic hospital? It also depends on their specialization, their interest, what they are really capable of driving and moving forward. Therefore, there is another choice they have to make. And that choice is, what is the kind of domain they want to be in? The third choice they have to make also when they discuss, should it be a greenfield hospital that they buy land and construct and build? Or should they acquire a building and modify it? Or should they really buy an existing, not well-performing hospital? Should that be doing that? So there is a choice of how to sort of go about it, what would really fit their bill. There is, of course, a fourth thing. Should they invite other partners if the capital is not enough? They have some capital, but if the capital is not enough, should they really involve many other partners to come in? And should they also be investing in this? And should they all move together? Now you can really see there are many choices in front of them, many decisions, strategic choices they have to make. A choice will decide on which road they will walk. Once they have decided, they need to walk on that road. And that choice is what we call strategy. Strategy is nothing but a choice. To do something is a strategy. Not to do something also is a strategy. They may decide after all this to say that the best strategy is to continue in my profession, not to do any of these things. That really depends. They may really have that awakening. Who knows? But strategy is a choice. This is absolutely among the choices. This is what the road that I will really take. Then they need to evaluate the pros and cons of the strategy chosen. Then they need to move to the next step. Therefore, when they move to the next step, before that, there's an important factor comes in, the risk thinking. They need to evaluate what the risks are associated, opportunities are associated with each of these choices, so that their overall decision making, the strategic choice will become well informed. So that means really what is risk? It's a very important concept in the whole management thing to say you always need to be aware of the risks associated with an activity which you really undertake. Risk is simple. I would put it, say, something may not happen the way you want it to happen, and that's the risk. So once you identify, due to any reason, something may not happen, how do I really sort of mitigate it? What kind of safety mechanism do I put in place will become very important in risk management. So at this stage, again, they need to look at what are the risks associated with the strategy they have chosen and be satisfied that they can really manage those risks. Now they have to move to a very important stage, which I would really say they need to lay out all the details well in advance. They need to think through what kind of steps are involved in really realizing their vision. This will involve a lot of consultations with various people. It will involve plethora of matters to be really sort of written down and identified what is to be really done. How do I engage with the ecosystem partners, the real estate people, the equipment suppliers, the employees, the doctor employees, the others? How would it all come together? What are the legal formalities? What are the legal agreements required? What kind of banking arrangement? There are a lot of these details. They've not done anything, but they have to think through that. there's an enormous amount of planning required. They can consult with specialists, they can consult with their friends, they can consult with people who have done these projects before. So therefore, there's a detailing of how they have to go about to achieve this. There are also regulatory issues. They need to identify what the regulatory issues are, what kind of legal formalities that the government will require them to sort of comply with. In this country, as you know, compliance is a very important matter. Being very ethical people, they don't want shortcuts, because I always think that shortcut is the longest distance between 2 points. So therefore, there is no issue, no point in taking shortcuts to any of these things. So they need to lay out in detail what these formalities for compliance and regulatory issues are. Then there is the most important financial plan. What the financial plans are, how these next few years financially, how this will evolve, what kind of capital is required, where will the capital source be, where will it come from? Will it come from their savings? Do they have to borrow? Do they have to get more people to really come on board, as they thought about in the strategic discussion? If their strategy is not to sort of involve new partners in the state, then they need to think about borrowing. Or if they have enough capital, then they say, let us size it accordingly. So that could be a strategic choice. Then they do a planning accordingly, and then it really go forward. Then there is a pricing strategy. What should be the pricing strategy? Should they really be, so they need to plan out again. They need to think through that and really say that, would they really sort of give some concessions to people who cannot afford to pay? So there are a lot of plan details which they have to plan out. More importantly, there's a time frame. They need to understand in what time frame they need to complete this. Because when they do plan out, they need to think about time, cost, quality, deliverable, milestones. All these need to be thought through. This, I think, is what in management parlance we would really say planning. Planning in many ways is an advanced preparation. A preparation where you think through as many steps as possible, but you'll never be able to get it right in the first step. You need to really rework it. You need to go through it again and again. But it is very important to launch something only after you think through all these details. As you really do a very detailed planning, I have to tell you again, the risk management issues will really come in. Each one of those planned steps will identify and really say that what could be the risk issue, what could be the challenges that you really face, how do you manage those challenges, what kind of mitigation I need to really put through that, how do I sharpen my planning, how do I engage the people who will really sort of work with me to do these things. So the entire concept of planning becomes very important. So we had objectives. From objectives, we moved into strategic choices and strategy. And from strategy, we move on to planning. We do a very detailed planning. Projects are executed only on a very detailed planning basis. Whether it is a small project, whether it is a big project, there's always a planning involved in this entire thing. Then we really move to the most important step. They are all sitting together. They will now come a stage in life for them that they have to move to the reality. And that reality, what I would really call, is the execution. Because execution is where the tire hits the road. Execution is where what you envisioned, what you thought about, what you planned, what you chose as a strategic choice, all that will have to be translated into reality. Because you are now going to meet the real world. Slowly, the product has to come out, the product of their vision. So therefore, the implementation, the execution becomes very, very critical. So how to complete and commission this project, this hospital, is a big thing. Therefore, based on the plan, they need to start executing one by one, right? So what are the characteristics of a very, very good execution? An executing team and an execution people, it has to be granular and rigorous. You cannot really do some very broad macro planning and hope to execute. At the planning level, you can still do certain building blocks. But when you come to execution, it will require a lot more of rigor in trying to get things really done. So you need to be more granular, you need to be far more detailed and far more rigorous in how you approach an execution. So that is what they need to do. Then there is a relentless follow-up. Having really asked somebody to do something, I'm afraid you need to follow up to ensure it is getting done and delivered. What are the three dimensions of done and delivered? It has to be done on time, it has to be done within cost, and it has to be done as per the quality parameters that you require, and it has to be really sort of delivered in terms of the volume that you want it to be really delivered, whatever it might be. Therefore, you need to continuously follow relentlessly in many ways. How do you do that follow-up? You need to have metrics to measure your progress. You need to sort of ensure that you are measuring at every stage, whether it is a milestone, whether it is a quantitative step, whether it is a timeline. You need to keep on measuring this and ensuring that you correct wherever it is slipping. It will slip. Of course, it's a real life. Everything will not happen to your dream. Everything will not happen as you really planned. Something will really go, somewhere it may slip. You need to sort of course correct it. You need to have enough buffers. It's very important in planning, you really do certain amount of buffering. So that buffer will help you in execution and ensuring that you meet your early timeline. Then you will come across challenges. Suddenly some challenge, very unforeseen challenge might really come up. Everything, of course, you need to anticipate. Everything you need to think through and then start executing. But there will be some challenges very unknown. So the unknown challenges, you need to rise up to the occasion and try and really see how you can meet the challenge, how you can correct it, how you can take help, how you can really get support necessarily, how you can rally your team, how you can motivate your team and see that what you need to be really done gets really sort of delivered. In all this, when you really do, whether it is strategizing or whether it is a planning, whether it is executing and implementing, the whole concept of risk management becomes very important. Risk management is more about proactive thinking. To say that this could happen, therefore, how do I really protect myself? This could really go wrong. So what could be the steps to ensure that I really sort of have enough mitigation measure? If I really apply for something, finally my application may get really passed in 3 months. I need to really have, probably if it really gets rejected, whose support I will really take, or how would I really sort of get that really sort of rectified, mitigated. So the entire risk management is an integral part of whether you do strategy, whether you do planning, whether you do execution. It really becomes an all enveloping important characteristic to understand. It is more about thinking proactively what might really happen. So I just gave this example only to really say that these abstract concepts of managing, or rather objectives, strategy, planning, and execution, all this, somebody when they start into a venture, all these will really come through. People very often do these things, it is embedded in the behavior. We are only trying to sharpen our understanding of this. Because very often people do go through these steps. Sometimes they don't go through in a very rigorous manner, and therefore they really face sometimes the challenges. But it is very much there, embedded in the way that people go about getting it really done. So I gave this example to just demonstrate this management concept. Sometimes you really keep the concept, you hear the concept of control. Now controlling is an integral part of execution. Because in control, if you compare your actuals with your plan, then you really say that how much you are deviated. This is what I talked about. Without planning, you will never be able to execute well, because in execution, you need to know what you need to deliver, what you need to meet, what timelines you need to meet. Unless you have a clarity of plan, a datum line in front of you, you will never know that what you wanted to really achieve. So the whole concept of control is an integral part of your execution. The measurements, the metrics, the numbers which are really required, whatever it is an integral part of it. If you are managing the cost of the project, it is important that you know almost on a weekly basis the amount of money you are spending on the project and what headings and what purpose you are spending the project. So these are very important aspects. A lot of it is in a way common sense. When you really codify it, you realize how important it is in controlling these things. When they start the hospital, again, they need to do a detailed planning as to post-construction and post-commissioning, how the hospital is going to run, how the part of it they might have planned earlier. Now they need to do a very revised, detailed planning again, because now they are really going to do a day-to-day running. A project phase would be over and the hospital would have come into existence. Now they need to deal with the running of the hospital. The organization structure has to be planned, the resources have to be planned, the pricing has to be planned. What they thought through as the pricing earlier, some reality will really come in. They need to sort of ensure that how the business development will really take place, how would their hospital be known about. All these things will really come into existence at that stage. Then the whole concept of planning and executing, measuring, controlling will get into the cycle once again. So there, the people in all these processes, when they really start doing the project, as well as, let us say, running the hospital, people play a very important role. The entire management, the people have the central role. Once you really get the right talent, once you really get the right people to execute, to work with you, then you are able to achieve your goal comfortably, because they are aligned with you. They are motivated to do what you have envisioned. That is why when you align your people, you need to think through a very larger purpose of what you are doing. I always believe that every job is bigger than what it appears to be. Just running a hospital is not running a hospital. It is protecting the lives of people. It is protecting the health of the people. When the people who work for you are aligned to a very larger objective, their ability to perform well, their productivity, their contribution, and their own motivation goes up substantially, and then your ability to deliver well and your ability to excel in what you are really doing also becomes very, very good. Thank you very much.